right, what is up, everyone? My name is Justin Wohler with Twinjitsu. I am one of the twins. Next to me is the other one.
Chris.
No last name?
I stopped going by my last name.
Okay, just Chris. This is Chris.
Chris Christopherson.
Welcome to the #1 Jiu-jitsu podcast where we barely talk about Jiu-jitsu. And I'll tell you, folks,
Let's talk about the Super Bowl.
We have quite the episode planned here ahead of us. That's not true. We're kind of winging it this episode. The past few episodes have been planned, more produced. We're just going to go off the cuff and probably regret it later, but you guys will find out. So one thing that,
it's going to be hard to top last episode. So, peaks and valleys.
Just a little filler episode. Let's talk about our week. It's been a long few weeks between the winter storm, the ice, and all that stuff. A lot of people, I think, still might not even have power, but thankfully a lot of people have all that restored and stuff by now. And it's been busy, but this week I've felt really good about teaching. What's
Well, just why?
I don't know. It's just, I've had some good, it's like, I've been trying to think about my teaching like I used to think about with my jiu-jitsu as far as like progressing and getting better. And I just had a good week. I feel like I taught good classes, kids and adults. I feel like I handled situations with the kids really well. And yeah, I felt really good. Put me in a good mood. Like every day I had a class or 2 or 3 that just went well and made me feel good about it.
I did not feel that way, but I also think, if you're stressed in your outside life, it's going to affect the way you teach and how your classes run and all that stuff.
I've had classes before that I did not feel great about. Even if I was like prepared or whatever, I just didn't maybe articulate things or it felt sloppy. But then I've had people text me after those classes and be like, hey, that was like a really fun class. I haven't like, whatever.
Yeah, that usually happens when I teach very little, like almost no details. People are like, man, I really like that class.
Yeah,
I'm like, well, I didn't really say anything. So maybe
I just put you guys to roll. Let's talk. I think my idea for this episode was going to be about teaching, and let's just talk about our teaching experience. Okay. So we both took over as full-time instructors when we were black belts, 4.5, almost 5 years.
Yeah, which is crazy.
But we had teaching experience previous to that, right? Like I had been assisting with kids' classes or even somewhat assisting with adults' classes since I was a blue belt. I was teaching private lessons at blue belt. At the time, we had no other upper belts. So if Professor Reggie went out of town or something like that, I would cover classes. So I've been teaching since blue belt. What about you?
Since blue belt. I would walk in and Reggie would say, Chris, you're teaching.
So,
which I liked and didn't like,
Let's talk about blue belts, like lower belts teaching, because that can be
hot topic.
Can be a controversial topic in the jiu-jitsu community.
As a black belt, I've learned more from blue belts over the past 5 years than I have from other black belts.
I would agree with that.
Maybe if we had more black belts training in our gyms, maybe I would feel differently about that. But for the most part, I've learned so much from the eager blue belt who's watching film and doing the hard work. They come with a little nugget or whatever.
Do you feel like you learn more in training with them or you see them do something and you...
Probably both.
Yeah,
especially like blue belts that have wrestling experience. I think you can learn a lot from wrestlers.
I always used to talk about how jiu-jitsu is like open source software and
nerd.
Yeah. open source software is open to the public, and
Yeah,
people
did you
can.
discuss that at your Dungeon and Dragons meet, nerd?
I would like to try Dungeons and
Yeah, you
Dragons
would.
sometimes. um,
Do you
so-
like dragons?
Yeah. Anywho, so open source software is open to the public. You can take it and modify it and do whatever you want with it. And kind of what you were saying with the blue belts or purple belts who are maybe studying a lot more instructionals or whatever, or maybe hip to the new meta. It's like you use them to get hip to that, using them when you train with them, you're going to get to see that game that they're studying or whatever. And I always take time to like, if someone does a cool move to me or like a new grip or something I haven't seen before, I always try and stop them and ask like, hey, what was that grip? Or were you trying to do that?
I usually stop and say, hey, that's illegal. You're not allowed to do that.
That would never work on me. So you should probably let go. Yeah. Okay. So on to the lower belts teaching. I think lower belts are closer to the source material that is needed from beginners than black belts, right? I've almost had to relearn how to teach beginners in a way. I feel like I was, when we first took over as instructors, whatever, 4.5 years ago, I hadn't been teaching much in a good span of time. And I felt like I had to relearn how to teach to beginners in a way, to where now I have like my fundamentals curriculum. I have it down the way I like to teach it, and I have it down pretty well. But I do think black belts or upper belts sometimes can be further removed from the source, from the things that like need to be known by the beginners, because they just do it by habit and they may forget to explain it. That's why you can get like world-class competitors who aren't necessarily world-class instructors, because they do things that they don't even know they do. And then you have, like the word you used, nerds, like a guy, John Thomas, who just broke down Leandro Lowe's passing probably better than Leandro Lowe could have, because
Well,
he's aware of or not aware of necessarily all the things he's doing. So I do think it's great to learn from beginners that way. The other thing I tell people is I would not be, and I'm not saying I'm a great instructor, I have lots of room to grow, but I would not be as good of an instructor as I am now had I not started teaching at Blue Belt.
yeah, I mean, I talked about that one time when we had a purple belt was teaching class, and he kind of was struggling, and I helped him through the class or whatever. And at the end, I was like, first off, props to him for trying to coach a class and trying to teach. And the way I see it is, if he waits to black belt to be a teacher, he's going to be a white belt at teaching, because teaching is a skill within itself. Not to say that you need to teach, but if your goal is to teach, then you should start as early as you can. And maybe that looks like just assisting a kid's class or whatever. But I think teaching kids is very helpful too, to learning how to teach correctly. I shouldn't say correctly, because there's many ways to teach, but how to teach effectively.
Have there been any are there any breakthroughs you've had, you feel like, in your instruction in the past like 6 months, whether it's with kids or adults?
Not in the past 6 months, but over the past 5 years.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Okay. Energy. Your energy, your ability to look at everyone while you're teaching, I think is super important. With kids and adults, because the room's gonna match your energy. So if you're just, not lively, it can be boring.
One thing to that I've been doing with kids, and the first 4 years we were teaching alongside each other, but we don't necessarily get to teach together because we're at our two different schools. But one thing I've been doing, we are pretty strict in certain times of our kids' classes. We want them to sit in a line, legs crossed, eyes on us. Now, we know kids are going to be kids and they're going to move around or whatever. And so I've definitely learned to be more lenient in certain aspects. But instead of just saying eyes on me, which I do still, I do. I will start when I'm explaining, okay, guys, what we're going to want is these judo grips. I'm just using basic names. Andy, we're going to want to let go of the collar. And like, if I see them looking away, calling them by name, but including them in the instruction has been very effective as opposed to just eyes on me, which I still do sometimes. But that's a strategy I've been using kind of along to what you were saying.
Yeah.
So energy, anything else?
Sometimes less is more.
Yeah, we were talking about that with someone of, when you start teaching, especially if you're someone that loves the details and studies instructionals, you kind of want to relay all of that stuff. Because I used to, when I was studying a lot, Professor Reggie, as an example, he would teach a class and things would get left out or not necessarily talked about. Stop touching me. Don't touch me. Early on in the episode, things would get left out and I would kind of being the whatever nerd, jiu-jitsu nerd, I'd be like, why is he not talking about this? Or like, hey, da, da, da. It's like, oh yeah, because not everyone's going to remember half of it. And the difference between a seminar and an instructional versus an hour-long class is very different. The format is very different. Obviously, the time is different. So for me, I just think about what do I want to accomplish with this class and how can I achieve that as simply as possible. Or like today, I had more upper belts than white belts. I just had a couple white belts on the mat. So I taught something that we all could do. And then I taught the leg drag with kind of a lot of details. And I taught that for the upper belts. But then for the lower belts, I told them, okay, guys, for you, I know I just threw a lot of details at. What I want to see from you today is get here, and that's it. I'm giving them a 3-step option to not get overwhelmed in the details. Because I've even taught advanced classes where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give them the sauce here. And then afterwards, like I've literally heard them look at each other, say, did you get all that? Like, can be a lot.
Agreed. That was a lot.
Uh-oh. So yeah, knowing your format and your structure, you don't have to teach a full Danaher instructional in a hour class. Because in an hour class, you may have 20 to 40 minutes of instruction depending on how your instructor does the class.
Also, to teachers or instructors, don't expect perfection. Meaning, if you teach this leg drag to a brand new person, like the chances they're probably going to make like 3 or 4 mistakes. Give them one tip on one mistake and move on, and let them figure out the rest or come back to them later. But yeah, just don't dump too much information when giving criticism.
Yeah, it's kind of the learning. Everyone learns differently, but it's slow kind of building blocks usually for most people.
One of our feet stinks.
And I can guarantee you it's you because I don't smell anything. Yeah. One thing kind of back to the first thing you talked about was energy, which I know you and like Dr. Joe, who also does a podcast, Old Dogs, BJJ, have talked about where teaching is basically a performance, right? Because you need to be able to, whether it's kids or adults, you need to be able to keep everyone engaged. You need to be able to keep the energy up for the class, for a good, effective class. And it doesn't matter how well my teaching of details and things like that are. If I don't have energy, you can feel it with the class. The class is low energy. And I've definitely been more conscious of that over the past year or so.
It can get hard when you're teaching 4 or 5 classes back to back. but that's the goal.
So, kind of segue into kids. Uh, we had our kids competition team training this morning, and it was actually a lighter class. But right now, I think on our competition team, we have like 30 to 35 kids.
It wasn't that light.
It was still a big class,
Yeah.
right? But it wasn't the full crew wasn't there. And I was talking to another parent that goes to another school, and they were talking about wanting their school to have a competition program or things like that. And it was so hard to build that Saturday 9 a.m. kids class, comp class to 35 kids. And we've had, quite a few total students and total number of kids at our schools, but building a dedicated team of kids who want to be there on Saturday morning instead of the million other activities or sports they could be potentially doing takes a lot of work, right? I want to talk about like what was it like when we first started that comp class, because we had taken over. It was right around people getting back to regular normal things
Like 6 months
in
after.
2021 COVID times. So the schedule was pretty light and we were expanding it. I think we added it pretty early on, right?
Yeah, I mean, as early as I can remember.
And the class was free and has been free up until recently, and we can talk about that. But
Why?
well, because I think I don't know, I think it's part of the business aspect of
Okay.
it. But it would be how many kids on the mat?
2 to 4.
Yeah, I mean, it would be tiny, and I don't remember the growth, but it would, it'd be like 6 months of, okay, 2 to 4, maybe 6. Okay, then 6 months later, it's maybe 6 to 10,
We
and it
started like inviting is invite only.
right.
We would invite the kids that were engaged in classes and wanted to pursue jiu-jitsu as a sport. But recently we do open tryouts, and we have not turned a kid away. The point of the tryouts is to kind of set the standard of what we want to accomplish in that class. But I think it's been great, especially with the tryouts, because there's kids that maybe necessarily we wouldn't have invited, but they're showing that they want to be a part of it. So, and that's been cool, I think.
and those have been the most rewarding kids, right? Like I'm not going to name them, but I think we know who we're talking about. Maybe kids 2 years ago, year ago, we would have never thought they would be a fighter. We never thought they'd be kicking butt in the competition class or at competitions. And by being open to the participants, we've kind of been able to form that a strong competition team. Like I was so impressed this morning with my group of kids. Right now, we've split our competition team for our kids into varsity and junior varsity. It's basically age and skill that dictates where you go. And that's been very helpful. It's only been the second week we've done it, but makes sense, right? Like you have split beginners advanced, and it's kind of like how it is with the junior varsity. But we did mixed training where all the coaches would pull a group or of two to do battles. And man, it was awesome. Like all the kids are impressing me day to day. And that's the sort of stuff too, maybe not necessarily what I taught that day, but seeing the skill progression of the kids and the adults. Like I joke with the adults, and I kind of took it from Professor Edgy. It's like, man, you guys are doing jujitsu now.
Yeah.
Like we weren't doing jujitsu, whatever, 2 years ago, but now like the whole room is doing jujitsu and getting tougher. And when I drive away, whether I trained or I taught and I just witnessed it, that makes me feel really, really good.
Feel good.
Ooh, ooh.
No, no, no.
What are some teaching mistakes you've made that can stick out?
Mm, Next question. I don't know. That's tough. I'll think about it.
I I mean, I make mistakes all the time, and I try and again treat my teaching like I would with my jujitsu, where after the class and just I have social anxiety, so it tends to just kick in regardless of whether I want to think about it, but reflect through the class of what I could do differently, or maybe even answering a question differently or whatever. One thing I've learned for myself, and I learned this pretty early on, is always be willing to admit that you don't know something. Like if someone
And why would you do that?
to expose your weaknesses. When someone gives you a question that you don't have the answer to, it's okay. Like just I think a lot of times if you're a purple belt, brown belt, especially a black belt, like you're expected to know the exact precise answer. And it's not always the case. For me, what I've found is if I don't have the correct answer right away when someone asks me, is I have them put me in the position. And then I can give you oh, here's exactly what I would do from here. Or, I haven't felt this, but this is what I would probably do from here because I have the experience and the context of jujitsu enough in my brain to be able to problem solve without um with taking some time. Okay, I would do this or I'd move my arm here. I may not be able to do it in the match of rolling if you did a grip I hadn't seen before, but that's kind of the idea of what we're doing with jujitsu is real time problem solving. So for me, yeah, admitting when you don't know something and just being put in the position and being okay with like, here's what I would do from here. And I'm big about gray area in jujitsu that there's not 100% wrong or right way to do something. Now, there are sometimes in certain instances 100% wrong or right way, but certain grips or certain ways to push an arm or pull an arm, like I think it can be very different depending on who you're training with or your body type and all that.
Yeah, I try not to speak in absolutes. That's
Right. And I talk about risk reward and like trade-offs a lot, whereas one grip may be stronger in certain areas than another, but it may be weak where this other grip is strong. And you kind of have to make those decisions based on your partner and stuff. And that just takes experience to be able to do that without necessarily consciously thinking about it. What back to kids, what are some ways you like to deal with a kid who's just not necessarily getting it? And they're like, it's not just a clear example of them like they're not paying attention or something, like they're very struggling with what they're doing or the steps you're trying to give them.
um I mean, they're visual learners most of the time. So instead of trying to repeat yourself, say, "Hey, let me take your spot," and you show them. Um, Also, just, "Hey, you take a break. This person's in," giving them a reset, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Uh, g- Partnering them up with the right partner
Yeah, I mean, that's
too.
helpful.
And I mean, I've made the mistake of maybe partnering two kids that together and they just both were not getting it. And then the coach starts to maybe get frustrated and not necessarily with the kids, but frustrated with them, like not being able to translate what we need to do. And then it's like, oh, the quickest, easiest decision is put them both with someone more experienced. They're going to feel it. And I've been doing that with kids too, who aren't really getting the fight. Like when we're battling and they're just kind of standing there, not getting it. If they're both doing that, then we probably need to put them with a kid who, yeah, may take them down every single time, but they need to feel that energy. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
like someone's getting after them.
Yeah, I mean, putting two people together that don't know what they're doing is never works out.
What do you think is better for kids? Do you think because we've been doing a lot of game style learning. Do you think the game style or kind of traditional like three or like minimal step?
I think it should be both. I like to do a jujitsu style game that implements the move then teach them the move. That way they're familiar with the position. That's how I like to
So
do.
can you give an example of like a game we like to do?
So this week was the single leg. So the game is the pogo stick game where one person is starting with hugging the leg trapped in between theirs, and they have to make their partner hop and ultimately try and knock them over or take them down. The other person has to just try and get their foot to the floor. So going from a pogo stick to a two-legged human being. And it teaches them how to control, not to lose the foot, to keep control, and to off balance.
Yeah. Do you
Trademark. That's trademarked.
Copyrighted? Do you like to do games with the adults classes as well?
Yeah, I mean, I did the same with the adults this week too. I
Yeah.
didn't call it the pogo stick game, but
I think it's really effective. And the thing I like also about the game style training is you're constantly moving. So sometimes if you're already someone who's in shape, maybe the drilling aspect of class or warm up is not that much of a workout for you. And the games will keep you, I mean, it's essentially rolling the whole time, right? Now, I like the game style training to be less intense because it's more about learning and having those little micro battles within the game and the parameters you set. But I think it can be very effective for everyone, for kids, adults. And the thing I think about as an instructor is if it worked for the kids, it's definitely going to work for the adults. And
Agreed.
not that you should always go to the lowest common denominator, but I think sometimes as an instructor, you can get overzealous with the information you want to teach and share compared to what's actually in front of you in line there to take class,
Yeah, I also think when you just hammer the details and don't let them experience the position with resistance, you're kind of holding them back. Like they need to be able to problem solve certain things.
Yeah, I can tell you constantly to have both arms in or both arms out, but you need to get triangled 100 times before you actually like stop doing it.
Hopefully not 100, but that's probably accurate.
Learning. You got to kind of learn the hard way, and self discovery goes a long way, right? Like the things you discover on your own are going to be the things that you retain and become a part of your game forever. And I may be able to walk your hand and guide you to that, but you have to discover that stuff kind of on your own through the training and the resistance part of the training. Cool. Well, I'm trying to think of any other lessons learned teaching or things dealing with kids.
Comment below if you have any questions about teaching, and we'll try to answer it.
Yeah, I did want to say if you are what would you say to a blue belt or maybe even a white belt who is like, I may be new to jiu-jitsu, but I one day want to be a teacher. What advice would you give them? What would you tell them to do? What would be their next steps?
Assisting kids classes.
Yeah. Talk to your instructor, your coach, and see if you can help out. Most of the time, a lot of programs are going to be looking for assistance in the kids program. And I think, like I said, if you can teach kids, you can teach adults. It doesn't always work the other way around. And learning how to teach kids is going to go a long way. And that's the bulk of, a lot of jiu-jitsu schools is their business is not solely, but a big chunk of what pays the bills is the kids program. What would you say to someone who says like, oh, well, blue belt can't teach me jiu-jitsu?
I just don't agree with that. I don't know what I would say to a person. I just don't agree with it. I mean, I've seen blue belts teach great classes, so better than some black belts. So yeah.
What do you think the lowest belt should be for someone to
A blue
have
belt.
a school?
Oh, probably purple. But I mean, there's probably areas that it's like, well, the highest rank in the town is a blue belt,
Right.
so a blue belt.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think a purple belt could totally have a school. I mean, it's going to be hard if you're in an area with a bunch of black belts, I think, just for obvious reasons. But I think that anyone can be a teacher, and you have to treat it just like the skill of jujitsu that you've spent your time learning is. It's going to take time. You're going to have bad classes, good classes, but you just have to do it. Private lessons are also a potential opportunity as like a purple belt or blue belt, especially if you're a blue belt who's competitive. Like, um, the earlier you get started, the better. And most jujitsu athletes don't make money from competing; they make money from instructionals and teaching and social media. All right. Do you have anything else you'd like to
No,
talk about?
I had a I did a 3-day juice fast. I still feel awful, so I'm ready to wrap it up and just take a nap or something.
Or how do you feel after the juice fast other than awful?
I mean, fine. It was fine, but yeah, it made me feel a little weird. Still feeling weird.
Well, do you want to talk about it on the podcast?
I've been having some heart palpitations, mild panic attacks during this whole episode, so we're doing great over here.
I haven't noticed your panic.
Yeah. I'm glad. I've done a lot of work.
A lot of breath work over there off my.
Trying.
Yeah, it's a kind of a shorter episode, but covered what I had thought we might talk about, which was teaching. And yeah, next week we actually have a very special guest. We're very excited. So stay tuned. Make sure you like and subscribe.
Is it Brad Pitt?
The Brad Pitt of Jiu-Jitsu.
All right.
He's blonde. All right. We'll see you guys. Bye.